Welcome all to part 2 of Manifesting, the new protocols 2016. So, the pulsating effect is very, very effective, and the more research we do, it's that pulsating, that 3-day on, 3-day off, that is getting much in. And it's newer to you. You know, when you do something for 7 days, you know, by the time you do this after pretty much starting the 4th day, you're tired. You may or may not. You're driven by your goal, by what you want to see. But the problem is with magic is that it's nebulous because there's going to be a materialization time, and it's hard to connect the rituals to what's happening in general. But what we're finding as well with these transfer of magical energies, and we've been able to test this, and I won't bore people with the actual way it's done. We'll talk about this in our research of how it's done, but we can measure how much energy is being transferred to a particular person through a particular process, and that particular energy and how it affects them. Now, we're able to do this by transferring energy into an energetic tool and then measuring what's in there. So we send the energy not to a person, even though we could check through a person as well, but to an object like a crystal or something, and then we can say, well, how much of that energy is here? It's relatively as simple as that. First of all, the transfer of data fields and energetic data fields is instantaneous. There's no build-up. So when you start a ritual and you're working on somebody or something, that energy is instantaneous to them. This is how everything works in the universe, and otherwise known by scientists, the common Schwabs, is called quantum physics, and this has been proven that there's an instantaneous transfer of everything. And we can say here, and of course they claim it's not just data, but we will call it that, there's an instantaneous transfer of energetic data fields. So it's happening to them. So when you target someone, you instantaneously are affecting them, or the information is going there. Now,
well, if that's the case, how come you can't make somebody a slave?
Well, the point is that the data is going there. The ultimate question with all data that goes into someone, whether it's for healing, for control, for influencing, for changing them, no matter what it is, and that goes for anything in life, it goes back to it's not how much you send, or going back to the vitamins, it's not how much you send or take, it's how much you absorb. And there's a lot of factors there. Now, the average body can only absorb this 300 milligrams of vitamin C as a general rule. Why? Can we get more in there? Because if you're sick, you need more. Why is the body stopping that absorption? So, the whole idea is when you take it, it's there. It's not you. Why this is happening, you don't quite understand. And why it's only using a certain amount and you're only getting X results is the big question. The big question is how to not get the data fields, the energetic, magical energy fields to the particular target. That's very easy to do, and you can do it in many ways. Because, based again on quantum physics, with everything in the universe being connected, all you need to know is a little bit of information about that person. And to some extent, people who are advanced can even extrapolate in generalities. All those people who are attacking me, things like that, or all those people I want to send prosperity to, or to help me, or drag into my field of influence, or whatever it is that you're trying to do to draw things to you or to repulse things, because that's what life is all about, protection and protecting yourself and bringing in the positive energy. So why some people in certain situations react to the data fields differently than others and act upon them is the big question. The big question is, how do you get biological life forms, otherwise known as humans, to respond to the data that's being sent them? And we have data sent to us all the time from, again, this toxic feces mind of ours, who are constantly telling us to do things. And we don't act on it because it isn't appropriate. I mean, certainly, if you see somebody attracted or attracted to, your mind is going to and visualizing you having sex with them instantly. You're certainly not going to do that in a line or at a restaurant or in a club. You're not going to go over there and hump them as much as you may want to, because you're filtering all this out. But the information is flooding into you. You're thinking about it, but you're not acting upon it because it's not appropriate. And it's the same thing that happens in magic. Now, how do you get people to do that? Well, that's the ultimate key. And if there is a way or a consciousness factor which will make people do things, and that means it gets into their consciousness, they keep thinking about it, and eventually they act upon it. Now, how fast they do it and to what level and to whom they do it with and where is a whole bunch of ifs, ands, and maybe, and makes things very complicated. But rest assured that that information, these energetic data fields, are unable to be stopped, and they penetrate, and research has been done with, quote, scalar fields, and you can be at the bottom of the ocean or in outer space, and it will get to you and affect you. People have been in bank vaults, they've been in bunkers, and they've been able to pick up, quote, scalar fields, otherwise known as psychic energies and other things. This has been proven time and time again. So while there are ways to interfere with these things in an occult aspect and diffuse and confuse them, these penetrate whatever's out there, especially since nobody really protects themselves anyway. So it's getting to the target. That doesn't mean that it has an effect. I mean, if you were to shoot a missile at something and it was missile proof, or the energy that that missile had couldn't destroy that, you can shoot all the missiles you want at, let's say, a building that's made of pure steel or whatever that would stop that missile, and it's just going to explode and nothing's going to happen. So the whole idea is that these energies go in, they go into that person's consciousness, and whether they act upon it or not is another thing. But it is in their consciousness, it's working on them, and the whole idea is that if you continually send somebody a command, they will act upon it. And that means yourself as well, meaning if you continue to tell your send messages to yourself that you will draw in success to your life, you're going to keep creating these energies around you. You're going to be connecting to these streams that empower you, and you're going to be connecting to these energies to do it. You will act upon that, but and you will act upon it pretty rapidly because you're open to it. But that doesn't mean that these fields are built up strong enough that it's going to pull everything in instantly, or the channels that open up. It takes a while to establish these things, and your channels are going to need to be opened, and they're going to be able to, a certain amount's going to come through that, and then new channels have to be created. So it's a process, and that's the whole thing of life. If someone was a Superman or had these instantaneous powers, then you have no business being on this planet Earth and in this reality. It just doesn't work like that. And people who reach high levels of empowerment don't stay here. They turn into energy and ascend, plain and simple. That's why you don't see any of them. And of course, it's very rare to begin with. But you don't really have values for food and sex and gold-plated nonsense when you reach a high level of empowerment, because all that stuff is just laughed at as earth level being garbage. And that's the big joke of it all. And of course, this happens in life as well. People who get very rich and famous and can buy everything, what do? Well, I mean, it seems to me that a large percentage of them somehow think that now this gives them the right, because they can afford it and get away with it, to be in a constant altered state, chemically altered state. Chemically induced, meaning they take drugs. Or they're doing something else. Some people have hundreds of sex partners. Well, that's a drug. All sorts of things are made of that. And generally, all these people combine drugs with that and everything else. So, a lot of famous people think that, again, life is this. So they have the right and can afford it. But life is so vacuous, even for a celebrity of such great levels, that all they do is take drugs and have sex. Because they can get away with it. But all of that is very unfulfilling. So eventually they self-destruct. So it is not surprising that there's all these problems out there. So here we go again with this reality of understanding that, of how energies work. You need to understand that in the whole ritual process. So when you do things over and over again, it is not helping you. You're starting to do things by rote. And if you're not, you have to approach a ritual with energy, excitement. You want to do it and get it done and send the energy out there. And then you want to detach yourself from it. You don't want to keep thinking about it as all the time or anything. Now, some of these processes are very normal that you're going to keep thinking about it. It certainly doesn't hurt to have a personal altar, and this doesn't have to be very occult looking. It could have a plant on it, a little fountain on it, places for tea lights, a few statues that you're choosing, a little sacred space where you then are lighting candles daily. But you're very simple. You're lighting candles, putting a little oils on them, lighting them, and that's it for that day. When you want to do that, or you could even do it daily, it's not a problem. You're doing something on a daily basis, but it's so simple that it doesn't become a problem in your life. Now, you can do that, and that doesn't affect things or cause very much conflict. It just kind of keeps this slow drip that really isn't overwhelming to the consciousness of yourself or anyone else. But that isn't good enough to manifest and affect and influence the things you need to in life. So you have to do a more passionate drawing of energy at an intensity level. Now again, intensity and emotions aren't the same thing. There's a very fine line there, which we have to be very careful with, because when you start using any emotion, it doesn't assist the situation. We've tested this over and over again. So if you become very agitated and violent because you hate someone and are trying to get your retribution or justice, it doesn't work. If that was the case where anger worked, then would anybody be alive? Aren't most people really angry at certain situations and are thought the worst of someone? Well, it doesn't work as a general rule. And the only time that generally does work is when you get into a super berserker state, which is extremely dangerous because you've reached a level of murderous energy. And even that is effective for physical confrontations, but is not really effective in the projection of energy. So it's about sending a energetic data field to a particular target, and that isn't done in a high emotional state of either anger or depression or love or happiness. It's about sending energy with information, and that has to be done in a proper way. So it doesn't help whether you really want something, whether you're lusting after a person, whether you're lusting after money. That energy is not going to help manifesting. You've got to get that data field out there, an energetic data field. You got to send that information that's going to make things happen. And when you cloud it with all those things, what you don't understand is those emotions have with them huge amounts of negative crap that are causing your energy that you send to be basically diffused and impure because you've mixed all this other crap with it. So it's not the way it works, and that is anybody who's done any kind of spiritual work, any kind of healing work, anybody who's worked with chi knows that you have to stay in this neutral energetic position and not put emotions into it. It doesn't help. So and people don't understand that, these things that I don't know how many people have seen it on TV and on YouTube, etc., is that people are able to, that you hit with a 2x4, and many of these people you can even hit with a metal pole, and the boards break. They hit them in the back, and the boards break or the metal poles bend, and anybody can do this. And how do they do it? Well, logic dictates, Captain, that you would be tense and make yourself rigid, like steel. Well, martial arts has never taught you to do that, because you can't withstand. Steel is not going to withstand, particularly in the human body, attacks against it. You say,
well, how does that make sense?
Well, it doesn't. You can't. It's a physical wall that can be broken down. The reason why you won't be hurt if someone hits you like this, which is the classic case of a lot of drunks who get into car accidents who are not hurt while other ones are killed, is because they are just a mush. They're not tense at all. They can't control they're one giant glob. So when they bounce around a car, they're not hurt. If you hit somebody with a 2x4 in the back and they tighten up, you're going to hurt them or kill them. If you do the opposite and you relax, the board breaks and you don't feel a thing. That's the secret, baby. And it's something that almost anybody can do. So it's not the pushing out that's going to do it. It's the relaxing and letting it happen. It's the transfer of the energetic informational field out to the target, whether it's yourself or someone else, not the emotion behind it. So stay away from that. All emotions lead you into despair and down the dark path. Plain and simple. Emotions are mind-generated fantasies that usually are, I should say, mind-generated destructive fantasies and really serve very little purpose. So, the intermittent of doing things for short, and when you do things 3 days on, 3 days off, when you do something, it should be something that doesn't really last more than 2 to 3 minutes. You don't need to do it. This visualization that you go to your special place and you spend long periods of time there is all worthless. It doesn't help. That's old school. And what was happening there is that the thought behind that was that the more time you spend there, the better you're getting at it. Well, this is true. But what you need to do is snap into altered consciousness and trances instantly so that you can move on and go to the levels that you need to. Not sit someplace for an hour so you finally get into that state. You need to condition yourself to get into a state quick and fast. And you do this particularly by doing things at the same time of day. It helps a hell of a lot, as ridiculous as it may sound, if you wear a shirt that has it on. I have a particular t-shirt that I use for my spiritual practice. I put that on, and within 30 seconds, because I do it every day, the same shirt, I'm into the instant state of that I want to be into, because now it's time. And this is what your mind understands, because your mind is a habit-based entity that does everything out of habit, whether it's good or bad. So you want to get into these things. Other people light incense. You still should have clothes you use just for magic. You put these on. That gives you a couple of minutes of psych up as well. You put it on. You're in the state. Some people like incense. The incense should be the same again. You can use music. It should be the same. I do all of these things. It's a combination of it. The music, the incense, the clothes. Boom. Always the same. Has to be the same. This is what gets the mind doing what you tell it instead of the mind telling you what to do, which is generally negative. So when you do this day after day, or even of course, you're doing this intermittently, but when you do this over time, your mind is instantly conditioned to go into these states very quickly. So the mind and even the inner magical being say, hey, it's time to get active. Meaning the mind gets pushed to the side, the inner magical being jumps up and said, I'm ready for action. And if it's done every day, then the inner magical being gets up slower and slower, and, pretty soon it don't get up at all because it's bored. And then the mind starts getting up and getting into trouble. So that's why it's important to do things for these short periods of time. Now, in terms of short period of time, I literally mean 2 to 3 minutes at the most. And this goes for all the occult tools, particularly all those using bags and so forth, which we highly recommend, is you're doing this intensive drawing of energy and projecting it to yourself or someone else. That's it. Any longer, it's a waste of time. As I said, you're actually hurting yourself by doing things for longer time than that. And if you do them more often, you're hurting yourself. Now, bags are a little bit different because you leave them on, they're sending energy to you all the time, but they're trickling energy to you in a fashion that you need. So, it's not like everything is absolute here. The whole idea is that you have these energies and these streams you're connecting to, but they're kind of on hold there. Your consciousness connects to these energies when you need them and is working in other areas which you need all the time, like protection and keeping basic fields. So they're keeping everything at a basic level. And to get greater effects, you need to draw more of that energy out there because that's how they're designed. They're not designed to pour everything in you all the time. Again, they're not pouring 10 gallons into you when you only hold a gallon and just wasting it all. It's a trickle. It's a drop. And if you want greater effects, you have to draw that in. So when your glass is empty because you need more prosperity energy, you use the bag to fill that glass up. In the meantime, it keeps sending that to you. And you may drain that glass in a few hours or a day, and you need to get stronger energy coming to you. And of course, the bag will assist to try and keep that glass full once you start the process. But, it's complicated. And, speaking and all these things, I think, just confuses people. But the bottom line is that, the energy is there that you have to draw in for short periods of time. It's there. It's working in your life. It's doing what it can. If it's not manifesting at the speed you want, which, of course, unless it pops up directly in front of you like a bad movie or an episode of I Dream of Jeannie, people don't...
Oh, that ain't real occultism.
Well, that certainly would be nice. But it is not real, and anybody that tells you this kind of thing and all the other ridiculous claims that people make is just plain fantasy. And if anyone can prove that to me and provide me with those things, I'll do all I possibly can to assist you and get it to everybody I know. Yet nobody ever does that with me because they know damn well that I'm not going to be fooled by some little trinket that I'm going to delusionally think is going to manifest. Yet I'm open to everything and will test everything. And want it to work, by the way. Not unlike schmientists who want to make you fail. I want to make anybody win. So, it's there. It's working. And, it's just the way it is. You're not going to, you may need $10,000, but how is that going to come to you? Well, it's probably going to come to you in drips and drabs. It's not going to be able to, somebody's going to do that. There is times when things break out, where channels bring in things, very unexpectedly, things manifest, but that's the way it's going to be. There's no direct way for most things to come to most people. You've done all that. That's why you're trying to manifest more through magic, and it will bring you more. But the bottom line is that it's very difficult to bring huge sums of money or bring in people out of the blue instantaneously. The whole idea is you become this attraction for that, and if you don't use magic, you'll stay in the same rut you always are without having any of these magnetic energies to you, and nothing will ever manifest. So that's the big difference. The point is with magic is that you're constantly trying to pull in what is out there within your sphere of influence, which is going to work and going to change your life. To what level? How fast? Well, that is unknown and very specific to your situation. If you live in Nome, Alaska and are doing love drawing, well, it's going to be difficult to bring people up to Nome, Alaska. So something is going to happen through a channel that some odd thing happens, the backdoor results, to bring that to you. But hammering every day at it is just depressing. And what happens is your mind says, well, you're doing this again and it don't work. Aren't you stupid? And then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, I am kind of stupid for doing this. And what you've done is you've actually changed the energy form of doing that. You're actually putting out negative manifesting. This doesn't work, and I'm going to make sure no money comes to me. Because this doesn't, and I'm actually putting out that negative. So that's the actual what happens when you do things too much. Now, if you've done things correctly, you've put out a huge amount of energy, which is all basically equivalent to doing rituals every day because of the fact that you've put out strong, intensive energies that now you have to give time to work. And that's all about giving time to work. And it's not the fact of doing things long-term intermittently. Now, if you go, well, I'm going to do it 3 days once a month. Well, you can throw that in the old dumper chute and flush because that's a waste of time because you haven't produced enough energy consistently. When the energy starts to weaken and die down after you've done things for 3 days and then you're off for 3 days, well, things are starting to get weak in those 3 days. You need to then keep those energy fields up by repeating it again. So you can't do something once a month. And what people try and do is use very bad machines, magic machines, to think that they're sending energy 24/7 when they're not at all, because their thought form that they put into that machine or whatever they're using has been it dissipates the second they stop using the machine, because the machines don't hold energies or project them. That's just a whole nother game, which we'll talk about somewhere else, because none of them are designed to do that. So it's the same situation there. With all these things. So you can't repeat that with the machine, or at least not with the machines out there now. We are working on that, and that's another discussion. So you want to go into things refreshed and give things time to manifest. If you're constantly hitting at something and saying, oh, this isn't working, because, well, how did you expect that people to turn around in a week? Of course you did. It's magic. And you expected to get a $10,000 check in the mail in 3 or 4 days because it's magic. And of course, everybody thinks like that, and this is something, no matter how intelligent people are, what their background is, that's where everybody's coming from. Because after all, it's magic. I don't want to work, it's magic. I don't want to apply myself, it's magic. That's why you're doing magic, isn't it anyway? Well, again, all that would be wonderful, but that's not how it works, and people that tell you different are either stupid or rip-offs. So, it's the intensity of keeping that energy and the intensity of keeping that connection to the stream that is feeding you, because it's like a connection as well. So the stronger that connection is, the better it is connecting, the more energy you're going to be able to draw in. But this isn't something you do all at once because you continually are drawing energy. It's a process and it takes time. You have to let that energy do its job instead of trying to force it. So when you're sending messages to yourself or others, you're going to, as I've said, not only are you going to block it, you're going to cause negative energies to actually draw the positive energies you've sent to yourself away from you by this constant high expectations and constant negative projection of energy if you're doing things all the time. But as I've stated in my manifesting book, repeat, repeat, repeat. You've got to be consistent. And if you don't repeat, it won't work for you. You can't do something once a month. You can't do something twice a month. You have to do this 3-day on, 3-day off types of rituals. And if you wanted to do a little bit extra during those days of a simple candle lighting, a very, and again, brief. It has to be fast. Your brain knows what happened. The energies are starting. You don't have to sit there for 20 minutes like a Buddha concentrating on it. It doesn't do a damn thing. The energy is there. It's gone to the target. The target will take in as much energy for that particular time like it is for that supplement, and it is done. So that's very important. But several things are going on here. First of all, you have to do things, you have to know what you're doing, you have to have the right tools, you have to understand the process, you have to understand what you can manifest. Again, it goes into a lot of things here. I mean, we've made these processes very, very simple and very easy by using the all-purpose Grandmaster bags. Things are made very easy to use these things, but you still have to understand the concepts. You still have to go into trance states. You still have to know what you can manifest. If you're trying to get a Rolls Royce and you work for a McDonald's, it ain't the magic that's got the problem, it's you. You still have to have those basic skills. If you can't think or concentrate on anything because you have no meditative abilities and no concentration abilities, you're going to get shitty results. Plain and simple. I mean, this isn't brain surgery when it comes to those things. You still have to have that. You still need to use the sigil systems that we have, particularly in the handbook, the Guild Handbook, which is an interesting history, and it talks about the Guild and what we believe and everything else. That's kind of a bonus, or a boredom, whatever you want to look at that. The whole idea is that there's 100 sigils in there that start the process of opening the inner magical being so that you can start achieving higher levels. And again, this isn't a concentrated.
You don't look at the sigil, what's in there? I'm seeing spicy stuff, and I see this images.
Well, the minute you do that, the energy that was there has now been pushed in and perverted. The whole idea is that when you use sigils, is you're looking at artwork, and you're looking at fast, speedy artwork. Plump, plump, plump. You're taking an energy, and it's not meant to go through your mind to interpret it or through your lower level consciousness. It's going to where it has to do the work, and that takes time. There's no way to instantaneous do it, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for this I'm not going to go into, and I'm going to talk about this instantaneous fantasy in another audio. But it's as simple as that. You still need to do all that because this is what's activating and getting everything to work. You still got to know all of these areas. You still got to have basic skills, and that's what you need to work on instead of spending hours doing a ritual. And I'm not sure anybody does it, but if you hammer and hammer, we've tested this time and time again, and we found out that you can do pretty much people, let's say, who were doing 100 rituals, were getting the same effect of somebody who was doing 30 rituals. It's not helping, and with our studies now, we're finding out that it's the projector, the person doing the rituals, it's very counterproductive, and their level of intensity goes down, and their level of energy set to the target dramatically decreases. Now, the target's either going to act on the informational field sent to it or not. And it does require consistent work, but more is not better. We're dealing with energies that are not what we think more is better. And I'm not sure more is better with anything anyway. That's a greedy way of looking at things. It's all about the right amount and the consistent amount. So that's still all part of the process, where you have to know and use these tools. So getting the books and so forth and using the sigils is very, very important, because these are the things that stimulate and create huge data fields and create huge energetic data fields that make their impacts. But it is not about greater and greater power. It's about the intensity of delivering that high degree of power to that particular target and letting it do its job. Plain and simple, if you plug in an electrical appliance, you don't have to keep plugging it in. It's connected. Why keep plugging it in? And you're gonna get better results by unplugging and plugging it all the time? Well, generally that doesn't help a machine. It actually hurts it. That's a great way to break something. Keep surging power in and out like that indefinitely over and over again, it doesn't help you. But a 3-day on, 3-day off is the way to go in general, and keep your intensity. Make sure when you do these rituals for these short period of times, you are psyched, you are ready to go, and it's boom, your preparation getting going to do all this stuff, while it doesn't take a lot, probably is going to take longer than that. By the time you get everything set up and you're in your spot, and it does help to do this at the same time of day, and that should be a time of day when you're pretty energetic. If not, and you have to put it off because you can't concentrate or whatever, then do it another time. The key is doing it at a high level of intensity. and getting into that state. You still have to be in the right trance state. That's what a high level intensity is about. And you still have to be projecting for the right things. And you still have to have all those basic skills. Now, these happen even with doing. And generally, I found that in most things you do, if you do them often for short periods of time, is a great way to learn and develop something instead of, well, I'm going to learn this and sit down for an hour and study it. And when we've done that, and I notice with myself, after 3-4 minutes, my mind is drifting to 1,000 other things. I've learned almost as much as I can in that entire setting without already. So what is the point? You might as well stop, come back. No, you come back in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever, and then go into it. Don't get sloppily, well, yeah, I've been distracted and I'm still thinking about that. No, you go back into it with a high intensity, boom, and then you're done again. This is a great way to learn things in general, but it's also the way things work when you're doing any kind of projection. So even if you wanted to do repetitive things, and we're researching doing things for, repetitively short bursts like this, every half an hour. That's another way to do something. Does that gain better results? But, that tends to after a while, but you have to be able to generate this high intensity of non-bored activity to get results, period. So the minute you get bored, the minute the mind's, oh, none of this already, not again, boring, boring, boring. Well, what happens is all your data fields turn into muck. And the energetic factor of those fields are reduced down to nothing. So, basically, this is very good news for everybody because it means you can do things quick and simple. And when you get into when the inner magical being is conditioned enough to get into high states of consciousness quickly, and like the mind, the inner magical being, while working all the time, also enjoys the fact of not having to constantly be directly activated. It works well in these areas as well. So everything is a plus when you look at things in this manner. So when you're looking at the sigils, which are critically important, you are not looking at them. I like to write the term view because it's like a view. If you ever been on a big view someplace where there's, high on a mountain or something, you view it, are you really looking at anything? Well, kind of not. There's so much that you're kind of taking it all in. You're not saying, well, I'm on the top of this mountain, so I'm looking at this one area. Well, it's a panorama you're looking at, and it's kind of, you become encompassed by the view, not you viewing it. So that's how you have to think about looking at the sigils, is that they're encompassing you. You're letting it happen. The energy has built up and it's transferring into you, and it's transferring instantaneous. There isn't any of this, it takes time, and things can only go at the speed of light, and all this kind of proven nonsensical, boobish theories that have been perpetrated on mankind for the last 50, 60 years since the idiot Einstein came up with that boobalicious idea. Everything is instantaneous when it comes to energetic data fields in particular. It isn't based in any speed of light. It's much, much faster than that. Not only fast, it's not even tachyon fast. It's not even faster than the speed of light. It's instantaneous. And it makes its effects, and we've tested this. So that's the way you have to approach the sigils. It's like viewing, and you're on top of a mountain. Anybody who's been in a big view, you could say, well, describe the view to me. And they're not going to say, well, there was a black mountain on the left. No, you're going to say, well, there was all these mountains and this giant field and this huge... You're not going to be very specific. You're going to be very non-specific because that's what you viewed. And that's how you look at sigils. Do not concentrate on them. You're going to have a reverse effect. There's nothing to see there. We've made them common, uncommon, strange, psychedelic, whatever it is, there's all sorts of there. But the whole idea is that they're not meant to be viewed. They're meant to be taken in. They're energetic art. So that's part of the process as well. So, it's all about doing these things right. And it's all very simple once you understand the process, and very quick. And that's the whole idea. If it's not quick and simple, people don't do it. But quick and simple isn't good enough. Writing a 20-page book that is just vacuous in terms of ultimately how good it is, and it may be interesting, but vacuous because it has no power, they haven't get enough energy, is a waste of time. So it doesn't matter how quick it is if it doesn't work. So it's got to be quick and efficient, and I've just explained to you why it works so well if you understand all that. So it's quick and efficient, and it's the way things ought to be done when you're dealing with this particular type of technology and the energies that the guild makes. So that's all part of the process. So it's just as simple and as complicated as that. So there's a lot of factors here, but once you do it right, that's the key to it. So all these long rituals, doing things for 7 days and so forth, which is very traditional, is pretty much out the door now. Now, you can do a long 7-day ritual, particularly if you're not going to repeat it again, but we don't even recommend that much anymore because of the fact that after 3 days, you're not generating any more energy. It's basically a waste of time. You're wasting equipment, you're wasting your time, you're wasting formulas, you're wasting candles, or whatever you're using. Doesn't work. So things are very instantaneous, and if you've sent the proper energies there, they're working immediately. So the key is that, have you sent the proper energies to make the effects that you want, and how long is it going to take to manifest that? But you can't do something once and think that that's going to do it as well. There has to be a consistent data field because of the rejection factor of whomever or whatever you're sending it to. So you have to reinforce that energetic informational field by actually doing repetition and doing it consistently. 3 days on, 3 days off, short periods of time, high intensity. That's what works. So, and this works with all magic, whether it's psychic magic, whether it's earth-based magic, or whether it's spirit-based magic. It all works better in this aspect. Now, there are, as I said, if you have a bag or other things, I've already explained how those work for you all the time, but they're feeding you because they're your personal item and charged to you specifically and bound with your energy field. They're going to feed to you when you go down in a certain, you could say that the magical bag is a multivitamin, but instead of just taking it and whatever you don't use going out of you, the bag produces what you need to keep you at a certain level. So, and when you need more of that, you do have to specifically draw that in. So if you need more protection because of your traveling or there's something going on, you need to draw that into you. The bag is going to keep you at a certain level, but that level may not be high enough to protect you at that particular moment. The same thing with trying to bring other things in, health, etc. While the bag is going to try and stabilize you, and over the years, hopefully it will automatically fill you up to a point where you don't even have to do many rituals. Initially, for we don't know how many years it is, and it's very individualistic, you have to draw those extra energies in. So if you're not feeling good and you want to bring in positive healing energies, you've got to directly do that because there is a certain not understanding by these data fields that you need that. So you have to project more of those fields into you. And basically, it's just as simple as that. It's about intensity and doing things for short periods of time. There's no reason to go to your special place or do things for more than 3 minutes. You go there and be very efficient in knowing what you want and desire. Do it and end it. It should be fun and interesting instead of longer periods of doing something that, no matter how interesting or motivated you are, become mundane and boring. And when that happens, you've just screwed yourself. because you're not going to get any results whatsoever. When you go back in, what you're doing is creating a negative thought form of the fact that, oh, I got to do this again, even if you're doing it quickly and it's been a waste of time, it's negative. So then when you start building up a negative reaction to something, it's very difficult to then overcome that again. So it's very important to make sure that you don't overdo it, because then trying to go back and doing it in, your mind is going to tell you, well, this isn't going to work, this is no good, it's too short. After all, you did it for a long period of time, it didn't work. These are all the negative things that start to build up. So you've got to be careful here and make sure that you follow these protocols of what we've been able to test. So the energetic data field that is sent is instantaneously interacting with whomever the target is. And the ultimate question is, what type of energetic data energy field will have greater effects on something and have things react faster, if that's possible. But a lot of that is scientific fantasy. Things take time to build and construct. So the whole idea is to get things to happen faster and change within your life. It may not be something that you can that is good for you that quickly. And this comes into the whole other field of that, things will manifest for you in the manner and the way that they can and should. And to give you too much of something is just as unbalancing as not having enough of it. So everything in its own time and place. So some things maybe have to come to you slowly, because that's the best way it happens. So, trying to second guess magic with your understanding of how it should manifest for you and what the best way, of course we all project for that, but it's looking from your point of view is extremely limited. If you look from the bigger point of view of how things can come to you, that is a much bigger picture, and it's very difficult. Things can't just knock on your door and here I am as your now mate, here I am with a bucket of money. It just don't work like that, and it's just not going to happen that way. Now, you're not talking about a realistic world that we live in, and everything is based in this realistic world we're in. And when you get past that, you get into an empowerment level that is non-human, non-connected to planet Earth, and you will no longer exist here. You may actually reach a state of instantaneous ascension and just disappear, which has been the case with a lot of people throughout history who have reached the state of gnosis. They're gone, because they're no longer stuck in this physical reality, and they just become pure energy and have gone on to a much more pleasant reality instead of this very terrible, decaying hell plane that we live in right now. So it's just as simple as that. It makes your system, once you get it down, once you get into the being able to instantly psych yourself, when you can put passion into something in terms of energetic passion, where you do things enthusiastically. And as I said, it can't be emotionally based, because that brings in a bunch of negativity. If you emotionally draw someone to you because you've got to have a mate, you're going to generate. Generally, what happens is people get very bad results that way. Yeah, they pull somebody in, but that person is horribly flawed because they mix that desire for someone with all sorts of trashy personal beliefs and sexuality, and they end up bringing a person who is not whole. That's not really what they wanted, and they then have a person who they don't get along with, and it becomes counterproductive. So that's the other aspect of fine-tuning your system. Yeah, it's simple and easy, but these are the things you have to concern yourself with of that not doing it from an emotional viewpoint, doing it from an energetic viewpoint, getting into a high state of this, doing it and ending it and moving on is something you have to work on instead of every day doing something for longer periods of time. You're working on these little things, which you have to then just come basically from practice. But when you get into consciousness-based practice, into energetic data field practice, it's not like doing other things where repetition is effective. Yes, you have to do things over, but they have to make sure that you're doing them at very peak energy levels, or it becomes a problem, because this is not like training the physical body to hit a baseball or to kick a soccer ball. That's something that doing over and over again the physical body seems not to tire of, and needs to condition the mind. When you're going past the physical into the mental, it has to be interesting and powerful, and that's critically important. So, as usual, I've given you the secret of the ages, and we've researched and tested these things over the last year. This is the cutting edge. This is what works. You need to get involved in these practices, and as usual, we are always here to assist the individual and guide them. All the awesome training and teachings and information and lots of free and fun stuff. And occultism is fun. You need to look at all this as being fun. And that's the other approach, which before I go here, I want to just remind me here, is that you need to look at this as fun. You need to do stuff with a smile on your face. When you do stuff with a smile on your face, it's enjoyable. And you want to make this whole thing enjoyable, because that increases your energetic energy field. So it's fun. It's interesting. Think of the amazing things that are possible and how you're changing your life. It's fun. For a relatively small investment compared to most anything else, you are being able to do amazing things, and it's just plain fun. And you have to look at it as fun and approach it. When can I do this fun activity again? This is fascinating. Not, well, I got to do this to make money. I got to do this to draw some. People go to occultism generally because of stress and the need, because the materialistic world ain't working too good for them. But that doesn't mean that the process of changing that can't be fun, and it's very fun, and people need to look at that. And, a lot of this is all of the hot action, all the cool stuff that's going on, all the more advanced information is available to the Outer Guild. The Jedi School is getting a whole bunch of great information, which has no obligation whatsoever when you join that school. And this is where the action is. So if you're not participating in there, you're losing a lot. There's less and less being offered in the Outer Guild in just the area. Even though there are constant free audios like this but this is where you're going to find much, much more potent, interesting, and exciting information. And lots of free links to all sorts of things are available there just by becoming a Jedi member, which is very inexpensive yearly fee. So, as I always say with that, there is no reality until the occult scientist creates it. Question everything. Believe nothing. Question all authority. Trust absolutely no one. Learn it, be it, do it, and let the guild be your guide.